coping and seething. You just can't accept what you're seeing. Yes, you're coping and seething. The truth it is scalding, and now you are molding and coping so hard. Coping and seething.
What's up, everyone? Gojin the Makai Phantom approaching ya. Looks like I've awoken to a response video. Yeah, I'm sticking with the bad intro. It's helped me thus far, which in that case, thank you to everyone who has subscribed. But let's get into the slop today.
He was mostly making just decent counterpoints and just playing my audio in its entirety at double speed, which annoys the fuck out of me. And then he would kind of like, pick stuff apart. He wasn't really doing a lot of ad hominem attacks or anything.
Okay.
So that was fine. But then he did go to another YouTuber who did a video on me on a different day that I also didn't know about, and that guy was pissed.
Well, maybe not pissed. Apathetic is maybe more accurate, since a 4-minute response to a 22-minute video does not a good response make. What's up, everyone? Gojin the Makai Phantom approaching ya. So the topic today is gonna piss off a lot of slow readers.
With an intro like that, you know it's gonna be a bad video.
If this video actually had teeth, I'd call this poisoning the well. But like you say in your comments, gotta post slop, so let's breeze through your response.
It's over 9,000! What, 9,000? There's no way that can be right!
It's crazy enough to have warranted its use by multiple people, so clearly in context it had some effect. But when you actually listen to the line, it kind of feels like while he's trying to mimic the sound of a yell, he doesn't want to go so loud where he causes a scene. So in a sense, it almost comes out like an enthusiastic reader of a book trying to make it sound more epic than somebody actually in the situation. Seriously, remove the angry visuals, remove any context of that scene that you're aware of, and ask yourself this: what emotion is he giving?
Let's stop here and think. He uses the Ocean dub from Dragon Ball Z, one of, if not the oldest dub of Dragon Ball Z ever to be created.
I am using an old one because there is a precedent of dubs for even popular shows to have odd deliveries that can impact the interpretation of the scene. Acting is an important piece of storytelling, which is why I'm kind of against removing that aspect in general, since by default, you're remaking a portion of the work. But I understand dub has its place, so if you're gonna change the voices, I'd expect some actual nuance within the delivery. This is not a book where you're left with only writing and artwork to leave extra room for interpretation. The actor's job is to help carry that extra weight. Same goes for the composer.
Better example would have been DBZ Kai of that line. It came out later and the actor had more experience with the character but managed to deliver an even worse line read than the Ocean dub.
Vegeta! What does the scouter say about his power level? It's over 8,000! 8,000!
You acknowledging that Kai's delivery is worse literally is making my point for me. But since you brought it up, let's have a look.
Vegeta, what did you say his power level is? It's over 9,000! 9,000?! There's no way that can be right!
This one seems to be aiming for a similar subtlety of the Japanese original, but it's still not good. For example, what's with that moan? Is he busting a nut or some shit? Is this kid's mom writing Vegeta's cock too? When it comes to the delivery, it's still too fast with how he talks, leading to it sounding a tad awkward, which, as I addressed in my original video, this is common with dub due to circumstances of trying to match the lip sync. But regardless, it leads to an inferior performance that if it was found in an American show, it wouldn't receive the same level of praise and charitability. And the moan at the end is absolutely out of place, especially when he could have just raised his voice a bit while saying it's over 9,000, instead of ending it off with an extremely poor attempt at a scream.
But wait a minute, we haven't even heard the original. Let's take a listen, shall we? There you go. You tell me, which has more emotions, the English version or the Japanese version?
The delivery isn't as shouty because Vegeta's not angry. Sure, with the scenery, it was easy for the dub to change up the context a bit, which I'm still very much against, mind you, but I digress. What's being conveyed in this particular scene is pure shock since Goku managed to surpass his brother Raditz and Nappa, who's even more shocked than Vegeta but still continues to fight him regardless. Put it this way, it took the Saiyans like 11 months to reach Earth, yet Goku managed to become 5 times more powerful than Raditz and Nappa. A fucking Saiyan elite in less than a goddamn year. Also, when you watch the full clip, it's pretty easy to notice that, considering his mouth's wide open before the iconic line and is gasping within the sentence. Reason he breaks the scouter during the scene is probably because he assumed malfunction. Look at how he thinks to himself here. His delivery is still slightly loud, but that was to show while he's dumbfounded by what he saw, he isn't gonna back down. It's a showcase of determination more than anything, while the dubs would lead you to believe it's rage. Which, what would you know, it changes the fucking scene to be something it wasn't intended to be. But looking at both for what they are, let's judge the dub like we would an American remake instead of a localization. It's a matter of the proper emotions used for this scene and the amount used for what's intended to be happening. On the reveal of L, everybody is supposed to be shocked, but as they read their lines, it almost comes out sarcastic. Ooh, ah, ooh.
Here, he uses L's reveal and points out how the gasp from the man sounds sarcastic. But looking at a more Western perspective, having it exaggerated as in the original would have made it sound more sarcastic due to how Westerners view media.
The idea that the sub would come off as more sarcastic from a Westerner's perspective is a mentality that often leads to dubbers changing lines.
What are you wearing that for? Oh, those pesky patriarchal societal demands were getting on my nerves, so I changed clothes.
Have a donut. That always cheers me up. Pika pika.
These donuts are great. Jelly-filled are my favorite. Nothing beats a jelly-filled donut.
Or hell, even changing visuals.
Say goodbye to your friend. I'll pummel his head flatter than the shape of the earth. Mr. Helmeppo.
Can this be a slippery slope? Sure. But a dubber's job should be ensuring there is as little friction between their dub and the original Japanese audio as possible. This is not their work, it's someone else's that they are localizing. Unless you're gonna go all the way to pull a Ghost Stories or Attack of Legion redneck dub.
Think of a big black man chasing you! Well, he's not racist.
What's worse is he could have had an easy win here. I asked a friend for a second opinion on my arguments looking at both lines from these clips. My friend told me that this example is one of my weaker ones, which in hindsight, I totally understand. Dude was so quick to call my video bad, yet missed what could have been an easy layup. Guess that's what happens when you make a 4-minute slop response because you got your fifis hurt. She is meant to be a character who bottles up all her emotions and belief androids' only purpose in life is to serve humanity and offer no value of their own. This made whenever stakes got high all the more impactful, because when 2B displayed how she felt, Yui Ishikawa put so much passion into her delivery. It felt like years of bottled up emotions, because when they did show up, with the exception of a few moments, she'd bring out subtle feelings, providing the vibe she's trying to keep them hidden on those scenes. But she told the story, when you do that, the extreme comes out. In the case of her dub counterpart, to her credit, she doesn't stench of the stereotypes that have been clowned on throughout even Hollywood for that matter, but it's so bare bones it removes half the value of 2B's character.
I compared 2B's dub to the sub, and they both give a good performance showing 2B's emotions in that scene. So this is more of a preference more than anything.
All good and well that you compared both. Kinda means jack shit when you don't do that for your audience like you tried with Dragon Ball Z. It's like this is the 2-pump chump of video responses. You put in the effort for just about 2 minutes, then had nothing left, but output in the effort since you were too lazy. I'm talking about them in general. Let's go on about how the two are introduced, shall we?
2B さんですね。僕は 9S です。あなたのサポートをするように指令を受けています。
了解。
この大きなノコギリが目標の超大型兵器ですか？
違う。単なる防衛装置みたい。
じゃあ目標を探す必要がありますね。僕は飛行ユニットがありますから、外から見て回ります。
わかった。私は内部を中心に調べてみる。
You're 2B, right? My name's 9S. I'm here to provide support.
Copy that.
So, was that big old buzzsaw the Goliath you came here to take out?
No, just another defensive system.
Oh, well, I guess we have to find the target then, huh? I've got a flight unit, so I'll take a look around the perimeter.
Alright, I'll work my way inside from the ground.
In the Japanese, she's completely straight-faced and stoic. In the dub, she's still somewhat stoic, but not nearly to the same degree of reserve, and speaks fairly confidently.
There's this operator I kind of liked, but when I asked her out, she turned me down. Honestly, 2B, I don't know how I'm supposed to go on living.
I am definitely not the person to discuss this with.
2B is supposed to be suppressing her emotions, yet she's still displaying some level of that opposed to going robotic in tone till she becomes attached. Her delivery should have began only slightly above Arnold as the Terminator, but what she goes with overall undermines the character's development throughout the game. But let's talk about this particular scene. While context is very important to critical analysis, in this case, even without it, it's pretty clear which one shows more emotion.
I must have been corrupted when Eve detached from the network.
No.
It's okay. I can always reload my backup data from the bunker.
But you'll lose you, the you that exists at this very moment.
Guess so.
In the dub, she starts the sentence with heavy breathing, which is good, since it displays a bit of exhaustion after their big fight. But what it's missing is depth beyond that. She's not crying, nor does it sound like tears are being built. She speaks in a mostly firm sentence without struggle, and she sounds like she did at the very beginning of the game, besides the fact she breathes a tiny bit during that last line.
It's kind of fun.
Emotions are prohibited.
Sorry, ma'am.
And another thing, stop calling me ma'am.
There's very little range compared to that of Yui Ishikawa, and as a whole, she just doesn't do all that good on her own.
何?
あの機械生命体、なんだか不思議なことを言ってました。まるで感情が。
機械生命体に意識なんかない。そう言ったのはあなたよ。9S。
そうですね。
Now let's look at the Japanese original.
イブのネットワーク分離時に物理汚染されちゃったみたい。
そんな。
大丈夫。バンカーにあるデータで巻き戻ることはできるから。
でも、それじゃ今の君は戻ってこない。
She stops between sentences throughout in order to breathe. She gasps. Her tone goes from high to low. All in order to communicate to the player she's finally ready to break down in tears. Yes, the dub actress does a bit of that after she says no, but it wasn't throughout the scene, nor did she bring anywhere near the amount of heart Yui did.
I genuinely have way more to say, but I can't because the structuring of this video is so bad.
Are you sure it's the poor structure of my video or just simply being lazy? Maybe not, since most of your recent content in the last year isn't much longer. Maybe it's because you're working on these so-called longer videos you mentioned in your description. Like what? A video that's longer than 15 minutes?
As Viper said while watching,
I have no idea what that means. I know all those words by themselves, but in that order I do not get it.
That's a cute argument. Did your husband give it to you?
the whole video was so confusing. I don't even understand what point he's trying to say. Here's one for example.
But to entertain the argument a bit, let's say you can't notice the quality of performances that aren't in your native tongue. In that case, how do you know they're using the same method acting as the English ones? It's a direct contradiction to the point you're trying to get across. Because by your own logic, you shouldn't be able to read the cues and emotions in what you don't understand. Kind of a sloppy response to pull a random clip from my video and post it removed from all its context to make it as confusing to the viewer as possible. I know earlier I said his first response was poisoning the well, but when you prime a viewer for a certain response and back it up with a second person in your video and take it out of context, alarm bells start to ring in my head. The one thing off about this clip was a minor misspeak with the term method acting. I'll give you that. It doesn't work in this context. But you should have been able to piece together what I meant, especially since you're doing a video that's supposed to deconstruct my arguments. And funny enough, I'm doing a better job at accomplishing than you are. Now, a lot of defenders of voice translation tend to dispute this claim and go on about, oh, there are good dubs, or oh, the Japanese ones are just as exaggerated. We just don't notice what isn't in our language. Which, to go on about the latter, that is nothing but a fallacy formed only so those can cope about the fact they themselves lack confidence in the versions they enjoy, and as a result, try downplaying the impact of the performances in the way it was made to be viewed. First of all, the argument makes little to no sense, as just because they're saying words that sound like gibberish in our ears doesn't remove the ability to be able to read what the character is thinking or feeling. That's like saying just anybody could have played Jabba the Hutt in Star Wars, since there's nobody in our world who speaks his language. So as a result, no talent is necessary. Now, in all fairness, it might not be as easy to tell as someone who sticks to their own language 90% of the time, so hearing other ways of speaking might not even sound like words to you, especially in animation with the voice delivery being literally all you got to work off. But in that case, wouldn't it just mean that your lack of understanding for the language is distracting you? But it's all about attention. Once you've experienced enough overseas content like myself, it doesn't even matter what they're speaking anymore. You're able to read the subtitles to the point you forget you don't even speak the language, and it becomes just like any other movie, show, or video game. Take King Song-ho, for example, in The Host. His weird, socially awkward behaviors really says that this guy has issues compared to his more normal and successful siblings. Which works, because that makes when the reveal of his disorders happen, you already kinda had a bit of a clue, thus leaving it being twice as impactful alongside helping out the comedic situations in a way that doesn't take away the gravity of it. Real good acting not only tells you what they're feeling, they leave cues that help tell a story that can even help you interpret the situations or the personality of a character. But to entertain the argument a bit, let's say you can't notice the quality of performances that aren't in your native tongue. In that case, how do you know they're using the same method acting as the English ones? So here's what I was saying. Many dub defenders will claim you can't notice good acting in foreign media, which is already factually incorrect, but then many of them will go on to say, yeah, dub is overacted, but so is the original's delivery. See why those statements are at conflict? Because that would imply you 100% can analyze performances in other languages, yet people who say this will pretend like you can't whenever it's convenient. And I'm sorry to say, but if you didn't understand what I was getting at, I think that's a you problem. By any chance, do you engage with critical analysis, media literacy, reading Rainbow? And I'd strongly recommend the latter, bro. It'll change your life. That being said, it is true my video wasn't perfect, so I'll address some issues I've got with it here that he strangely didn't bring up. 1. I should have included that scene from Godzilla vs. Megaguirus to further my point on it getting in the way of the original intent. In the movie, this woman is giving a pretty straight face as she tells the kid it isn't garbage day before ending it off with a smile. The dub delivery completely conflicts with this, as she's basically yelling at the child in a snobbish tone.
There's no garbage collection today. You can bring your garbage down tomorrow. Okay?
Which not only misses the point of the original take, it's beyond noticeable while watching. Even somebody who's only seen it dubbed will spot that. 2. I made my arguments about certain points, such as Tubi's dub actress, but didn't build upon it with a clip like I did the Japanese one. 3. My attempt at making my points concise did do a disservice in some areas. Like when I'm on about Miki and Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, I state how she's not supposed to be crying. This is true, but the issue is lack of clarification. When you look at Megumi's face, she is holding back tears, but the dub actress has her straight up break down and scream at him, which isn't matched by the facial expressions and are heavily exaggerated given the context. But that was it for this slop. Please feel free to smash that like button, share it around, subscribe, and comment your thoughts down below. If you haven't watched my original video, I'd greatly appreciate it. If there is anything you'd want to respond to, do so there or here, as this is a topic I'm very passionate about and would love to refine my arguments further. Thank you all for watching. This is Gojin the Makai Phantom, leaving the building.